Hello, Changemakers. Welcome back to the Ballard Center for Social Impact's Do Good, Better video series.
In our last episode, we laid the groundwork for our philosophy, Do Good, Better. Today, we'll delve deeper into a concept at the heart of this approach, loving the problem.
We often fall in love with potential solutions before actually understanding the problem and the people affected by it. Loving the problem helps us do the opposite. Instead of getting wrapped up with our favorite solution, we focus on the people involved and take time to appreciate the complexity of their situation.
When we choose to love the problem, we choose to listen intently to the needs of the people facing these problems. Only after gaining a real understanding of the problem can we start to consider solutions.
Now that we've explained what it means to love the problem, let's dive into how we can use this concept to solve social issues. At the Ballard Center, we use 5 criteria to develop an in-depth analysis of the problem and to discover insights. We want to lay out exactly how you can use these steps to develop a comprehensive understanding of the social problem that you want to solve. Venture capitalist Yuri Levine, co-founder of Waze and author of Fall in Love with the Problem, Not the Solution, explains why this process is so important. Quote, falling in love with the problem dramatically increases your likelihood of being successful because the problem becomes the North Star of your journey, keeping you focused. Every day you ask yourself whether you're making progress in solving that problem. When you're doing that, you succeed faster.
Let's start with the first step of falling in love with your problem, identifying what it is. In this initial step, we're not trying to learn everything there is to know about an issue. We're just trying to make sure we're framing it in a way that helps us move forward.
Imagine you have a friend who just adopted a pet, a New Caledonia giant gecko. You notice that he's been super stressed about taking care of it, and you decide that you want to solve this problem, chronic stress among the owners of New Caledonia giant geckos. When identifying the problem, you would start by asking, is there a specific, significantly large population of gecko owners who report chronic stress? Can the suffering be practically addressed? Are there credible sources that articulate and study the problem? You would probably discover that the answer is no. While helping a friend out is good, in this case, it may be better to focus more of your time, energy, and effort researching a problem that affects a more vulnerable population that is at a higher risk. So what does identifying a problem look like in real life?
We want you to meet one of our very own Ballard Center students, Alyssa Minor. Alyssa is a public relations major at Brigham Young University, who wrote an issue brief about child abuse in the residential homes of Ghana. Here's what she had to say about why she chose this issue.
I wish that I could say that I had some revelatory experience that drew me to Ghana, but that's just not the case. When I was in the Do Good Better class, we were supposed to pick a topic, and I remember feeling really overwhelmed because I thought, man, I'm so passionate about helping the world, but I don't know what I want to help, and I felt really inadequate at first. But I had a friend who served in Ghana, and so I decided, okay, that sounds interesting. Let me do some research on it. And one of the first things that I found was this really complicated history of orphanages in Ghana. And I just immediately felt kind of tied to it. So once I started researching it, I just realized that it was something that was really becoming more and more important to me the more I researched it and the more that I spent time learning about it.
It's okay if you don't know where to start. Because there are so many ways for us to learn, all we really need, especially at the beginning, is a desire and willingness to help. Once you've come up with the issue that you care about, it's important to narrow it down to a specific demographic and place in the world. Notice that instead of thinking about child abuse in general, Alyssa focused on child abuse in residential homes in Ghana.
The next component is recognizing the context of the problem. Every issue is deeply rooted in a specific sociocultural, economic, and environmental context. A solution that works in one setting may fail in another. To understand the context, we answer the 5 W questions of journalism. Who, what, when, where, and why.
Alyssa just spent the past summer in Ghana working to understand this social issue. Child abuse, like most other social issues, transcends borders. You can probably imagine that the strategies used to combat this issue in the context of our own home state of Utah would be vastly different from those needed in Ghana.
Honestly, I think that understanding the context of a social problem may be the most important thing that you can do when you're trying to solve a social problem, or even first understand it. Every problem that exists in the world has a history of legislative things and cultural things that are behind it that make it a a problem, or in some cases, make it not a problem to the people around you, even though we see it as a problem. And that's important to know too. Well, one of the important things I learned is that there are a lot of people in Ghana who are passionate about this issue, who are trying to do something about it. And so once I learned that, I realized, okay, the issue is not that people don't care. The issue is that there's some barrier in the governmental structure that's stopping it from actually coming about. One thing that I was actually surprised to find that wasn't included in my research prior to my trip is that the British colonization of Ghana has impacted the society of Ghana and the culture of Ghana so much in their everyday life, and that definitely has an impact and an influence on the issue of child abuse in Ghana as well.
Can you see how Alyssa's experience studying the context of the issue in Ghana helped her understand the problem so much better? This is why it's so important that social impact groups, wherever they are, ground themselves in local communities and help people most affected take ownership of the impact process. Once we've identified the problem and established context, it's time to examine that problem's contributing factors. On the surface, many issues appear straightforward, with obvious causes and obvious solutions, but a deeper look often reveals hidden complexities. Contributing factors are various pieces of the puzzle that collectively lead to our social problem and are essential for us to get to know. They give us insights about the core drivers of our problem, inform our decision process, and help guide possible effective solutions.
After we've nailed down our contributing factors, we need to spend time figuring out the direct negative consequences that come from each factor. When we're thinking about consequences, it's useful to focus on different categories that they fall into. For example, financial, environmental, physical and mental health, personal relationships, etc. Notice that each category touches a different part of human life. And by no means is this list the only way we can break down types of consequences, but these categories help us be specific and clear about what happens as a result of the social issue.
Let's hear what Alyssa has to say about understanding negative consequences.
The negative consequences of a child being abused, I think most of us understand it pretty well. It affects them psychologically, it can affect them physically, it can affect them socially, it can affect their self-esteem. All of those things contribute to a child's ability to actually thrive and be able to continue and move forward and make a living for themselves, and not only that, but make a life for themselves. Actually going to Ghana and meeting people who had experienced some of the issues that I wrote about in my paper completely changed the way that I saw that it affected their lives. The issues that they face are at a fundamental level. Here I was trying to write a paper, trying to think of, okay, how can I really prove that this is an issue? But when you sit down with somebody and you see them in extreme poverty, or you see them having years of living in an institutional care where they've been severely abused, or it's almost laughable to have to even write about the negative consequences because it's sitting right in front of you. Children who are in abusive situations, or who are starving, or who are hungry, they aren't thinking about what they want to be when they grow up. They aren't thinking about what opportunities or potential they have in their life. They're thinking about, when do I get my next meal? Or am I going to be beaten tonight? So I think that it made it so much more real for me to see that these negative consequences aren't cookie cutter things that I can just write about on paper. These negative consequences of children being in abusive situations is that they lose hope, or that they don't see the value in themselves, or they don't see the potential in themselves. And those are harder things to measure and harder things to include in a study, but they're just as real, and they're so important.
The negative consequences that we discover in research allow us to better understand our social issue. They also help us to decide what we're specifically trying to solve within our issue, and enable our measurement and evaluation efforts. After identifying the most significant negative consequences, we select one that then becomes our outcome goal. Here at the Ballard Center, we define an outcome goal as the desired change that we seek in relation to the negative consequence we have identified. With our negative consequence and outcome goal in mind, we can better set measurable goals and evaluate our progress to determine the effectiveness of our interventions.
While measurement is an essential part for bettering our interventions, social impact is so much more than the numbers and the data. What's crucial about this step of loving the problem, along with all the other steps, is that we connect consequences to people.
The fifth and final step of this process goes further. It's all about understanding current practices. In this step, we ask ourselves, what is already being done to alleviate the suffering caused by this issue? What are the current methods in focus? How successful are current interventions?
It's important to remember that in this step, we're not trying to design a new solution or test out our own ideas. Rather, we're comparing notes with fellow changemakers who have already spent significant time trying to tackle this issue. We look at what's worked, what hasn't, and analyze the experiences of both those who are involved in the problem solving, as well as those most affected by the problem.
A few of the existing interventions that were already in place were some nonprofit organizations in Ghana who are working to support the Department of Social Welfare. There's also a plethora of organizations who are building schools or building homes there in Ghana. Some of them are more effective than others.
By looking at current interventions, we build an understanding of where the social impact world is in relation to the problem. When we eventually do start designing our own intervention, this information helps us avoid pitfalls and challenges that we might naively miss without the benefit of others' experiences.
All right, let's review the process of loving the problem one last time. First, we identify the problem, noting the affected populations, potential for change, and sources on the topic.
Next, we establish context, asking the basic who, what, where, when, why questions about the issue.
Third, we research contributing factors, seeking to understand what root causes might be adding to the problem.
Fourth, having found these causes, we try to find links between them and their negative consequences. How do these direct consequences help us describe the problem in new, helpful ways?
Last, we look at what other organizations are doing to address these consequences. What are their successes and challenges? What might we do to improve upon their interventions?
The American philosopher John Dewey said, quote, "A problem well put is half solved." At the Ballard Center, we believe that this especially applies to social problems. And to put a problem well, we need to love it first. Now, we'll be the first to admit that this process can take a lot of time and a lot of energy. We have a whole program at the Ballard Center, the Ballard Brief, that guides students through the process of loving the problem. Over the course of an entire semester, students write a comprehensive brief about an issue that matters to them, applying the same principles that we've just shared to uncover and communicate vital research about specific social problems. Our Ballard Brief database includes extended research reports on over 100 different social problems, and it's all open access. If you're starting to investigate a social problem and feel a little overwhelmed, you might want to check out the Ballard Brief website. There's a good chance that we've done some of the initial research for you.
That's all for this episode of Do Good Better. Let us know what you thought of this episode in the comment section. What's a social issue you feel passionate about? How can you start loving that problem? Share your thoughts and let's do good better together. If you found this video insightful, do us a favor. Like it, share it, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more content on how we can make a positive impact in the world. Until next time, remember, don't just do good,
Do good better.